Welcome back to Comic Book History. This is episode number 70. Now, this is the first of 3 straight videos I'm discussing the Legion of Superheroes. This is discussing the original incarnation, the one that's been around for quite a long time. Like, wow, this incarnation has been around since 1958. Yep. Yeah, April 1958. As a matter of fact, their very first appearance was in this very comic book known as Adventure Comics 247, and this is their first appearance. Yes, this is from the Wiki site, but yeah, it's basically a fandom site. But this is the legit cover, and it's been spoofed a few times. Now, on the cover, basically, we see the 3 founding members of Legion of Superheroes, who was still, to this very day, still considered to be the founding 3. Cosmic Boy, Lightning Boy, the later changed Lightning Lad, and Saturn Girl. Though I should point out, though, about these 3 costumes. Cosmic Boys mostly remained the same up until present day. Lightning Lad, or at least, well, originally it was Lightning Boy, they changed his outfit coloring from red to blue, and he's a lot more muscular nowadays, though in the Venice Run they changed him in black, but I'll get to that bit. Saturn Girl basically updated, put a lot more white in her outfit. Mostly she kept the Saturn thing around her. And the thing with these characters is that the whole point of Legion is that they're a big, humongous group. And when the group first showed up, they show up in the Superboy story. You're probably thinking, Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, and Saturn Girl show up to meet Superboy when he was, well, basically Superman was a teenager. That sounds very familiar. That sounds a lot like an episode of Superman in the Animated Series and an episode of Smallville. That's because they adapt this, though they didn't adapt all the Silver Age hijinks when they go to this one. So with this one, they basically recruit Superboy. They bring him to the future. Oh yeah, by the way, this is also used for the pilot episode of the Legion of Superheroes cartoon show, which I have seen. Really good show. Surprisingly, I didn't like the fact it lasts 2 years, but I'll get to that later. So, initially put, this started a series of recurring adventures for the Legion of Superheroes. Oh yes, definitely. That lasts a long period of time. Like, oh my gosh, like a long period of time. Yep. Now, pretty much their era, like, they popped up mostly for Adventure Comics, I have to say. Issue 247, 267, 282, 290, 293. They also popped up for issues of Action Comics, 267, 276, 276, 287, 289. Several issues of Superboy this period of time. Yeah, they popped up a lot of times in Superboy. 86, 89, 98, 117, 125. Like, a lot of time. They also popped up in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. They popped up in Superman, issue 147, mostly a feature version of the characters. And then issue 300, they got their own regular feature, which lasted for quite some time. Yeah, they were in the title up until, like, issue 350, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was around 350 when they finally left the book. Now you're probably thinking, why did they leave Adventure Comics? Well, the reason was because... Actually, like 380, yeah. The reason why, because they got moved over to Action Comics briefly for 373.92 because they're replacing... Because basically what they did is they swapped Supergirl. They took over Supergirl's backup feature for Action Comics, and she took over their feature in Adventure Comics. And after this, they basically become an integral part of the Superboy comic, still becoming a recurring character for quite a while. Until with issue 223 of the Superboy title, it was renamed to Superboy and Legion of Superheroes. This didn't last very long for this title. Oh no. Because exactly 35 issues later, the series changed name again to issue 248 to Legion of Superheroes Volume 2. This lasted about issue 300, where it was retitled to Tales of Legion of Superheroes, though after 10 issues it became a reprint title. And eventually, of course, the book was relaunched. It was basically went through the same thing that Teen Titans did back in the 80s, where you had this Tales book basically become reprints, while you had this relaunch book that lasted about 85 issues. Now, I should point out, though, about the writers in this period of time. You have Otto Bender, who wrote a lot of the stories. We also had, basically, future legend Jim Shooter. Yes, Jim Shooter basically got to start with this book. As a matter of fact, he wrote the comic that revived Lightning Lad. Yes, basically Lightning Lad died, and then he came back. Yes. Now, as for the members, oh my gosh, there was a ton of these freaking characters. Like, wow. Like, the first person that, now, these initial members to join the team with the original incarnation. You had Chipper Girl, Phantom Girl, of course, Superboy, Chameleon Boy, Colossal Boy, Invisible Kid, Kid Quantum, Starboy became Starman present day, Brainiac 5, of course, Supergirl, I remember, Laurel Grand, they were part of the relaunch show, Sunboy, Shrinking Violet, Bouncing Boy, he's a very popular character in the book. At one point, he became the lead superheroes, believe it or not. Ultra Boy, he recently became a leader too. Mon-El, Matter Eater Lad. Yeah, this guy's name is kind of a joke. Matter Eater Lad. His power is he eats anything, any kind of material. He eats steel, he eats ground, he eats anything. That's simply just this character. You have Element Lad, Lightning Lad. She's basically Lightning Lad's sister. Dream Girl. She's a very interesting character. She is, though the current mayor basically very transparent. Ferrolac, Karate Kid. Yeah, he was a character who basically had no powers. He also had Project Progera, and apparently her home planet was a place called Orlando. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Shadowlass became Mon-El's wife, Chemical King, and Timberwolf. Yep. Now, also, there was a couple of really big writers who wrote Legion of Superheroes at this period of time. We also had Paul Kepberg and Jerry Conway. Yes, and the original base, like I mentioned in my comic con for Legion of Superheroes, was up on a rocket ship. But when the group got bigger, they were expanded to pretty much a full embassy. And this look for their headquarters would last pretty much for a long period of time. Yeah, it was like Jerry Conway's run, basically. It was like this. He actually was writing the book when he was known as Superboy and Legion of Superheroes. And oh boy, there's a lot of members. You have Wildfire. He was a guy in this was a guy in the suit. You can kind of think of him as DC's version of that. I'm trying to think, what was that woman's name? She was basically Reactor Girl from Avengers Academy. Yeah, she's kind of the version. You have Dawnstar, who was known for having a boob hole in her costume. Bonnet, another Invisible Kid. White Witch. Magnetic Kid, Polar Boy. Quinset. And that was pre-Crisis Legion. Oh my gosh, yes. There was also they also at one point they had certain people who were rejected from Legion because apparently, according to the stories, their powers were not, let's say, powerful enough or not interesting to them to join a team. So they became a spin-off group of Legion, which they actually recognized, the Legion of Substitute Heroes. I might talk about it later video because they're quite an interesting team. Because some of them did later join the Legion of Superheroes themselves. Now, the Legion himself, basically, they had several known villains. You had the Fatal Five, which, yes, this group also about the Justice League in that Justice League first Fatal Five movie, led by Emerald Empress. Yeah, there's basically a group of 5 guys, 5 people against, like, a bunch of people. Let's see, we're finding. We have Emerald Empress, Menno, Pursuer, who actually popped up in episode of Smallville, Turok, and Bodice. Yes, they've also fought Brainiac, the Anti-Monitor. Yeah, a bunch of, like, known villains. They've got a character known as Computo, the crazy computer. Yeah. He's a Jerry Siegel character. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yep. So, mostly put the Legion of Superheroes, pretty much every single version of the character kept this concept. They're a branch of the United Federation of Planets. They're affiliated with them. And initially put, when the only equipment they were initially given aside from their spaceships, which, by the way, they've heard it was Legion because they basically had crisis all over the freaking galaxy. So they had several teams basically all over the place. And the biggest equipment they had to start out with, basically, some characters would fly, who didn't have flight, they had a gravity belt, which later evolved to the famous Legion rings, basically, for having. The belt and the rings were developed by Brainiac 5, the genius of the team. Excuse me, yes. Now, none of the thing with the Legion superheroes when it comes to Silver Age stuff, it's pretty standard. They're not terrible stories. Even rereading them in the archive books, they're fun stories. And I've always felt as though the Legion superheroes, who are typically associated a lot of time with Superman, tend to get a lot of really good stories. Doesn't matter what time period they come out in, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the modern day. They always fit really well because they pick good writers to write these books. Yep. And, like, pretty much when Mark Waid left the book. Yeah, Mark Waid actually came in the 90s. Basically, the writers, you had Jared Conway, obviously, Roy Thomas, Paul Levitz, who actually came out with the second volume of the series. The fourth volume was published in the 90s. You had Tom Berman, and Andy Lanning, and Mark Waid. The relaunch volume, which is done by Mark Waid and Jim Shooter. And then last was Paul Levitz. The most recent incarnation was, of course, Brian Michael Bendis. Yeah, some of what I thought was quite interesting about Legion of Superheroes. They always pick great writers to write the books. Now, there was initially a number 1 for Volume 1 for Legion of Superheroes. Though this was a reprint series, so it didn't really count as an actual volume. So you kind of say that Volume 2, when it started with 258, that's kind of the start of the series. Yep. And post-Crisis, they got some more members of the team. Yeah, and by far one of their best stories happened back in the 80s, known as the Great Darkness Saga, which spanned from issues 287 through 290, 294, and a couple annuals and an issue of Booster Gold. Yeah, it's an absolute great story. It's been collected a couple times. Where basically the newest addition to the book basically included up into issue 296, which was great, the fact they included that. Yep. Oh, by the way, the post-Crisis members of the team were Storm Boy, Stone Boy, Cover Kid, Firelight, Calamity King, Color Kid, Infectious Last, Porcupine Pete, Crystal Kid, Nightwind, Reflecto, another Karate Kid, Valslad, Impulse. No, not Bart Allen, different character. He's a descendant of Shakespeare. Echo, after the 5-year time skip back in the 90s. Keno, Neon, Reflex, Volsmith, Firefist, Bloodclaw, Fireweb, and a Spider Girl. This is DC's version. They had some honor members of the team. Pete Ross, Kid Psycho, Insect Queen, who was Lana Lang. Jeremy Olsen was Elastic Lad, and a Green Lantern. They had some other Expel members like Nemesis Kid, Starboy. This is basically, Diamond Boy and Command Kid. They had teenage versions of the characters. Now, mostly put when it comes to the Legion themselves, they always had very good stories. Basically, you gotta read from basically the start to get a lot of these character stories. Now, the best way to read these stories is basically in these following books. You have the 12 volumes of the Archive Edition for Legion of Superheroes. Yes, you have that. You have the Showcase Presents Legion of Superheroes, which collects mostly up until around the 70s. You have the Silver Age Omnibus books, which collect up until the start of their ongoing series, basically up until issue 380. Yep. There's also Silver Age Volume 1, which was released a few years ago, which is the only book they released, which collects pretty much a lot of their stuff from Venture Comics, Action Comics, Superman. You have Superboy Lead Superheroes is basically some of their run, but not the entirety of it. You have Leo to Before the Darkness. You have some stuff with Steve Ditko. Yes, Steve Ditko did draw some issues of this. You had some other books like Eye for an Eye, which is basically part of Volume 3. Also more Volume 3 stuff. More things change. The 4-5 Man of Steel, which crossed over some issues of Volume 3. Yeah, so 5 years later. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Yeah. The thing with the pre-Crisis team is that, 1958 team, basically you had the issues of Venture Comics, Action Comics, Superboy, Superman, 197, 258, of course, Super League Superheroes still became Super League Superheroes with issue 123, Karate Kid, the Tabloid edition, all new collectors 55, League Superheroes 259, 313, a Best of Blue Ribbon Digest 24, Secrets League Superheroes, Tales League Superheroes, 324, 25 from 526, basic reprints. The first 6 reissues of Volume 3, Legion Superhero Special, Legion 3, Cosmic Boy, 1 issue Superman, Who's Who, and of course, that particular volume. Now, After around 1996, basically at the 0 hour, this version completely disappeared from comics until Final Crisis happened. Yep, they returned 13 years later as part of Final Crisis, as Final Crisis Leads to Three Worlds miniseries, which also brought back Superboy, the Connor Kent one, and Bar Down Impulse, which had all three Legions show up, and those two other Legions basically made their final appearance. The post-Zero version, 3 version, this book was their last appearance because they never read out this because the pre-Zero version was back, so they got a spin-off. Well, then they popped up Venture Comics and for the second Vine Venture Comics, which they appeared starting with issue number 2, I think it was. This was basically, they were a backup feature for Superboy, who was the main featured book for most of this book, so before it became a Legion book again. And eventually they got their own book again in 2010, I think it was, lasted 16 issues. And of course, they also featured Venture Comics when it was retitled to 500, which didn't last very long actually. It lasted about 529 and it ended. And that was what people saw of Venture Comics. As latest superheroes, well, after 16 issues of the sixth volume for the series, which was published one annual, they were restarted number 1 as part of New 52, but the book lasted 23 issues, probably got canceled with low sales. After this, the characters themselves weren't featured again for over a year until they popped up in Justice League United. Well, Mon-El showing up, though the annual basically had more prominent appearances of the characters, where they appeared in the second story arc of Jeff Lemire's run, and then after that, they disappeared. They were never seen again until they popped up around Michael Bendis' run for Superman with the formation of the United Federation of Planets. Yep. Though they'd have Saturday Girl pop up occasionally as a build toward this, first in the pages of Batman, part of the Button storyline, and of course Doomsday Clock, which both were really good. I thoroughly enjoyed these books. And then you had the Venice Run, which was basically a complete reboot of the characters anyways. But in the case of the original group of the characters, it is great and thoroughly enjoyable. I mean, there's some interesting things this run, like, for example, Bouncy Boy and Triple Girl, who became Duplicate Duo, they retired from the team due to the fact they got married. Yeah, apparently had this ridiculous rule in the group where, get this, if you get married, you have to quit the Legion. Yes, I'm not kidding about that. Though, but I think by the 70s, they basically lifted this rule in order to allow Saturday Girl and Lightning Lad to rerun the team. You see, Saturday Girl and Lightning Lad basically became an item, and they later got married. And I think they had a couple kids together. Yep. As for Lightning Lass herself, she was outed as a lesbian in the 2000s. Yep, she got a relationship with a woman. I have no idea why, but that's basically what they did with Lightning Lass. And in the case of, well, basically for Bouncy Boy and Duplicate Duo, they basically became the head teachers of the Legion Academy, which that was for the Adventure Comics book. Yeah, the Legion Academy stuff, which I thought was really interesting. Basically, up-and-coming Legion members basically can join the roster while training at this school, which is a really interesting concept that DC didn't really explore very much. Mostly Marvel was a lot more just for having a school for training for future members of a particular team. They did this also with the Avengers, Rangers Academy, the X-Men have prevalent for years, and recently with Strange Academy. Yep. And in the case of the relaunch version, they had this thing where in the book there was some xenophobia for the United Federation of Planets. Then they eventually rooted it out. The 5-year time skip, basically, where the United Federation of Planets became basically after the 5-year time skip became a dark future. Yeah, this basically was not very popular, so they just rebooted Legion with 0 Hour. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's all I got to talk about when it comes to Legion Superheroes pre-0 Hour version. It's a really interesting version when it comes to the characters themselves. And well, so with the next one, we'll discuss the post-0 Hour version. This one didn't last very long, actually. No, it didn't. If you think about it, the 3 version lasts even shorter period of time than this. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, the one thing interesting, though, you gotta say about the book is that the reason the book was so successful because DC put in great writers in this book. I would say for the pre-0 Hour version, the best writers of this book, of this version team, have been Jerry Conway, Roy Thomas, and Paul Levitz. These 3 guys knew what they were doing. Otto Bender would definitely throw him up there too because he was the original writer of the characters. Mark Way was simply there just to basically help transition from the end of the pre-Zero version to the start of the post-Zero version, which I'll discuss in episode 71 for this series. And in 72, I'll discuss the 3 version. Yes. Now, I'm not going to discuss the Bendis version because I've already discussed that in my comic corners. So I would end my discussion on the lead superheroes with the 3 version. Yep. When people think of lead superheroes, people initially think of this version, the original 1958 version, the one that was existing up until very recently, up until Bendis rebooted the team, with basically his version of the group. Yep, so that's it, particular review. Now, I was planning on doing a Shun Princess Have Demon Hidden Dungeon Like Enter, but I was in a long Discord call, so I had to get a chance to do that. So, expect to see those 2 tomorrow, along with My Hero Academia and Case Closed. Okay, that's the next video. Bye.